What if your AI didn't live in the cloud, but on your device? What if you owned it, controlled it? No subscriptions, no surveillance, just pure, private, autonomous power at your fingertips. Today on Lead with AI, I'm joined by Hina Dixit, founder and CEO of Decompute, a company that's rewriting the rules of AI infrastructure for both businesses and consumers. With Decompute for B2B and Blackbird for B2C, Hina's bringing AI out of the cloud and into your hands where it's faster, more secure, and finally under your control. This isn't just decentralized, it's intelligent infrastructure, adaptive, self running, and built for the edge. If you're curious about what's powering the next generation of apps, research, and secure AI experiences, you don't want to miss this. Let's dive into the mind of a builder who's reshaping what's possible. Let's get into it. Welcome to Lead with AI. I'm Dr. Tamara Nall. In each episode, we will take you behind the scenes with visionary leaders shaping the future of AI across public and private sectors. Join us as we explore groundbreaking projects and innovations that are transforming industries and making a real impact on people's lives. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Tamara Nall. I am the host for Lead with AI. And today we have someone so exciting. We have Hina Dixit from Decompute. Hina, welcome.
Hi, Tamara. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you so much for this kind invitation. Really looking forward to chatting with everyone today.
Absolutely. We are so excited about learning about you and Decompute and all of the great capabilities that it can provide for our listeners. And I always like to start with what I call the spark. So tell us a little bit about who you are at the core and what problem were you trying to solve when you created Decompute?
Sure. That's a that's a very well asked question, honestly. Not everybody puts it this way. So I am the CEO and co-founder at Decompute. Before this, I was in venture industry. I was a partner at Microsoft's venture fund. I led their AI investments, AI thesis, also invested in infrastructure companies. Before that, I used to head AI investments at Samsung's venture arm called Samsung&x. And I invested in around 15 plus company before GenAI was GenAI. And I have around 6 plus great exits by God's grace. I don't think I did anything. My job was to just support the founders, and founders did it. It's just that I still feel so proud of all of them. And before that, my background is pretty technical. So I was at Apple for around 8 years. And before that, 2 years at Symantec. At Apple, originally, in my master's, I started with computer networks, and then I moved towards security. And from cloud security, I moved more towards AI as I grew. And I started taking on these different AI oriented projects, be it something related to CVML or something related to performance or bringing software 2.0 paradigms into Xcode in some way, right? So started taking a lot of projects there. And then I grew up, as they say, right? And became more of a leader there, right? Tech lead, and started leading all the projects, across different organizations, across different teams, different products. And I had my breakthrough moments where I felt I know AI and I know Apple very well now. I know the DNA of the company. I have the DNA of Apple in some way ingrained. But at the same time, I was never exposed to the worldly problems, right? When you are at Apple, you're only thinking about what's best for their consumers. You're only thinking about the infrastructure and ecosystem that they have. But then there are problems that exist beyond that. And that's why, I stepped out of my comfort zone of being a technical expert into moving into venture capital, industry. Which was kind of a leap of faith, honestly, for me, because I had a very well settled career at Apple. I loved my job. I was getting recognition from everybody, right? I think at that moment, like I felt I have to build something where people can use it. And if I want to build something which is general enough, I need to step out of the Apple's ecosystem and learn more about different business problems. And that's how my mindset was always that, hey, like one day I'll start my own company. And then Decompute happened because I had this moment of clarity. And the moment of clarity came when I saw so many founders. They were trying to raise funds from these big incumbents and cloud provider companies, right? And their reasoning was, hey, we want to get ahead, but we do not have enough resources to compute. And they were in line to get access to Azure or GCP and Nvidia or Oracle, right? They were not getting enough compute. And I felt that was slowing up the revolution, right? The adoption became much slower. And that's when it kind of struck me that, okay, we have so much of untapped potential in these, laptops, Mac minis, Mac Pros, Windows machines, Windows servers, AI PCs, which can be tapped into computing as well for AI. So that's how Decompute started. So I started working on that thesis, and then I continued building on top of it. So that's the story. Yeah.
That's amazing. It's about access for everyone. And that's what I love most about this podcast, is that it really highlights those solutions that open up opportunity for people given constraints and obstacles. So that's amazing. So now talk to us about the holy smoke moment. So what's the jaw drop moment when a person first experiences your product and realizes that this changes everything?
Okay, so I think that moment would be Tim Tully, experiencing Blackbird for the first time. Tim Tully is basically the one of the lead investors and pioneers in AI, right? He actually is one of the investors at Menlo Ventures, and he was blown away. Not just him, when we met Guido from Edison Horowitz, he was blown away as well. And both their reaction was, when are you loading your embedding Mars? How can this be so fast? What are you doing under the hood? And sadly, you could say, right, because we need to maintain the IP, we couldn't share the ins and outs of things, how it was working. And in the end, Tim was like, hey, congratulations. I think this is amazing. I don't know how you're doing it, but this looks amazing. And I think that was the holy smokes movement, for all the founders and
right,
that there are these people who are recognizing it.
And given the fact that they see so many investment opportunities, and then they're in awe, and having that holy smoke moment is amazing. Now, I know that you have IP and you can't share it, but what can you share? If we were to open up the hood or open up the brain of Decompute, what, in layman's terms, what would we find?
So if we were to think about this, think of this, that it is more of a local omniscience drive, right? Where you can instantly deploy any model on your own device. You can train it on your own personal data and generate anything that you imagine, and you never have to touch the cloud. Now you take total control of your data, of your AI, of your skill set, which is the most important thing here, right? Because you can actually teach your model how to generate right answers or do certain tasks for you, but also zero latency, because with LaserTune, which is the powerhouse behind Blackbird, and LaserTune is one of our proprietary technology, we have made fine tuning as fast as RAG. So basically, you give it a 100-page of file, it could fine tune within 10 seconds, which is amazing, right? So there's so much of creativity that is there to unleash here, right? And we're soon launching image generation as well on device. So completely you can basically generate Ghiblis or any type of art styles locally on your device, and you don't have to pay these big incumbents to do that. So that's the generic, thing that we are trying to do, making AI global.
And so does that mean, because with a lot of LLMs, it's pulling from all these public sources, and there, of course, with some people is a concern about security, but it sounds like with your offering, you don't have to worry about that because it's all here locally.
Yes, that's it.
Now talk to us about one of your customer experiences that really blew their mind. You know, we've had guests where they would talk about just some big like wow moments where a customer was using your product and they could see it for themselves. Walk us through that story.
Sure. So one of the customers that we had is they are basically like in finance industry, and their job is to like constantly monitor all these like different reports, right? Annual reports, SEC filings that come their way, and constantly like monitor the movement of the market and also predict it. So it's not only monitoring, but it's also predictive intelligence that is needed to be happen like in real time. And how fast like LaserTune and Aurora can make it happen for those like consumers, that's mind blowing, right? Like, so because we can actually parse the entire like SEC file, which is a very complicated multimodal data, if you think, right? Like it has tables, it has images, it has graphs, there's so much of like textual like nuances in it, right? So there's so much math in it, right? Like and the math could be very confusing, right? Like because the same numbers are being used in different contexts, and then they could also mean different things. So now like you're combining like a powerhouse here, right? Like of a lot of multimodal data, but also reasoning on top of it, right? And that's where we come in, because if you were to do this just with inference, right, like just host a very small model locally and give it like some sort of like file, and then ask it to do SWOT analysis, or like ask it specific question that, okay, like who are my top 5% stakeholders, or how much stake does like Ajay Khepuri like holds in NVIDIA, right? Like usually like biggies like Perplexity or Julius I cannot pull that out, and those people are on cloud, but we can do that on device for them. So suppose if you got your hands into like a very personal like private financial document, and you're trying to quickly parse it, get these numbers quickly, and get reasoning on top of it, you can use like Blackbird for it. And that's the aha moment that I think a lot of like our customers are witnessing at this moment.
Got it. No, that's amazing. And so is your product for both retail slash consumers and B2B? So who is your ideal customer?
So we have like a product called Blackbird, and then there is a product suite called Decompute, right? So Decompute basically like has a platform which is more built towards compliance and like optimization for enterprise adoption, right? Whereas like Blackbird is our more consumer and pro consumer facing product. So that's how like I think we see it. We want to sell it to enterprises who are trying to adapt AI quickly, like at a lightning speed. And then like we are also targeting people who are very privacy oriented, and they want to own their AI locally on their device, and they want to build their own agents. So these two customers are where like segments where we thrive the most.
Perfect. So Decomputer for your more B2B enterprise customers, and then Blackbird are for your retail consumers.
Yes.
And do I go to Blackbird from Decompute, or does Blackbird have its own access?
So you basically go to like a website, decompute.run, and you can download macOS right away. For Windows, we are launching next Monday. So upcoming Monday, we'll have like coverage for Windows and macOS both for running and training models locally.
Perfect. So by the time this is released, everyone, Blackbird will be available. So you can go to decompute.run for that. Now let's talk about the ethical. And you and I were kind of talking about this a little bit before we started the show. Let's talk about the ethical crossroads. I mean, what you're talking about is that people have access to very powerful tools. And so what ethical lines are you watching, and how do you protect the human in this loop?
Yeah, sure. So first thing first, right? So ChatGPT recently announced that the context window has become forever for them, right? Like it's humongous. Now a model that is deployed can remember your entire conversation in your past life, right? I think we as humans deserve a break. Don't you think so? I think not every moment can be a moment of perfection for us. But everybody who has made a mistake in their life in a human world can go and can make mistake but can be forgiven and move on, there has to be a similar journey for people in the AI world too. And we call it right to forget. And that is something that I think, like, the world is not thinking about here, right? Like some parts of the world, like Europe, right? Like, or the Euro region, like in general, they are thinking about this. But I think, like, whatever data that you put on, whatever picture that you put on can actually be manipulated, and you could actually, like, hackers can get your data out. If it's on cloud, it's very, like, prone to hacking in some way. But then how do you, like, even trust um, you know, people with these private moments, like, very private, like your images or very private financial kind of data, right? Suppose, like, I'm just a normal person. I need, like, to look into my finances, and I want to, like, feed in my bank balance statements, and I want to ask questions. Hey, like, how do you think, like, I should budget this? How do you think, like, what expenses do stand out the most? How can I cut them, right? Like, ask these simple questions. And I don't think, like, that's possible if we do not do the work that we are doing here at Decompute. And that's where we come in. We know that, okay, like, not every moment needs to go on the cloud. Not every moment or every part of your data and life has to be on cloud. And that's where we are forming a wall between the cloud and between the users, so that our users can feel secure and they can still use AI in the closeness of their own device, in their own house, zero contact with cloud.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So I just had my aha moment while we're talking, because I was thinking about the times where I might use ChatGPT or, Claude or whatever I'm using. And there are some things that I do not upload because I know, anybody can pull from it. I don't know necessarily how it all works in terms of they're pulling it, but they can. And so I still find myself doing a lot of, well, this is automated as I can in terms of programming my model, but I do find myself doing the work myself, the analysis of, like, particularly with taxes and, with my having different businesses and my nonprofit and trying to segment those. And it sounds like, Blackbird in particular for me as a consumer could very much help with that analysis or that research that is private to my own life that I don't feel as secure about.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where we come in. And that's why we say, like, okay, like, let's help you build these agents on the go. So right now we have 6 type of agents. There's a financial agent. There's another agent which does your legal documentation. Then there is an agent for doing analyzing, really, like, long format documents or research work, right? These could be hundreds of pages, like books you are reading. And then, like, there is one for personal conversation, like a meeting, which you can revisit and ask questions about that. Hey, like, what were my task items like with this meeting? Who were the top stakeholders in this meeting, right? And then we have, like, a very generic one, and one for the general coding one as well, like, just for seeing that how well, like, even small models can do, like, if hooked onto a single repository or, like, a couple of repositories.
Now, can I connect to the cloud if I want to, or there is no connection at all?
So right now we don't have connection, but if somebody wants it, so we are planning to have, like, a cloud connection, and then having, like, an automatic filtering, right? Like, which can understand your complexity of your task, and can also, like, understand how we can be the cookies in the cookieless world for AI while maintaining your privacy. So we keep your data private, but we get all the research, all the, like, input from the web, from the cloud, and we give you the best answer locally. So that's where we are headed from the Blackbird's side, or the POV, that we want to be that filter between the people and the cloud in general. So that's the plan.
Great. So yeah, we have a couple of developments that are coming out soon, but let's think about the big future. So let's fast forward to 2030. What does the future powered by Blackbird or Decompute, both, have in store for us, for the world?
Well, we imagine that every device basically becomes an AI powerhouse in the future, and AI companions can run locally on your phone, on your car, your laptop, Jarvis, like, Iron Man, right? Like, except that, Jarvis becomes local, or it controls all your devices in your house, but then it's all local, like resides locally in your house, just in a small, like, laptop or a small Mac mini. And then your data never leaves your hands, because your compute never leaves your device with Decompute. So that's how we are envisioning this. And then, like, eventually we want to not only like empower people, but also empower the enterprises, where their dependence becomes lesser and lesser, right? Like, they can make more profits just because they can push some of the compute locally on device, and they do not have to pay to these giant incumbents for running, compute, or they like compromise on their users' privacy by sharing the data with these cloud providers, right? Like, so we become the new future of compute. We are not saying that cloud will go away, but at the same time, when it comes to like serving to the consumers, we will be the people, like, you'll come to for, helping out, because we are focused on people's first priority, which is their privacy and security.
And that kind of shakes up the revenue model for some of these cloud providers, because they very much take what they know about consumers and analyze it and then potentially sell it to other marketeers. So that kind of shakes up that whole revenue stream, and they have to start thinking about that.
That is absolutely true. And that's where I think we want to take this to, because eventually, right, like, not every query needs to go to the cloud, right? Because a lot of these queries, we are actually showing we can process like entire SEC filing, which is like 200 or 100 pages at least. Such a complicated data, like for a very small model residing on a laptop, right? So eventually we see a world where your compute usage on the cloud will become like, less than 25%. Right. Like, for most of the tasks that you want to do, they can happen locally on your device. And if that's the case, then just imagine like how much power does this give to enterprises who are selling, or these developers, right? Like, who are building for their consumers, right? And they don't have to pay the cloud providers anymore. They can actually directly ship it to their customers, and their customers can control, right? Like, whether they want to use the cloud or they want to use like, their own local device for this.
No, that's amazing. Now, one thing that I do love to talk about is, our listeners are here. They want to know, how can I put this in action today or tomorrow? So talk to us about one thing that our listeners can try, build, explore this week with Blackbird or Decompute to really turn it into action this week.
Sure. You can download Blackbird right away, and you can start using it to code any project, or you can also like use it for any legal documentation. You can build your agents on any of these 6 sectors, which is legal. There's another one, technical. There's third one called finances, and there's one which does like more of a generic work for you, and then there's research. There's another one called meetings, so it lets you like record all your meetings locally on your device. No meeting going to the Zoom, and then like it will always remember your meetings for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing.
And the notes as well, right? Like the meeting notes and stuff. So you could always like put your notes and say, hey, like, can you summarize my notes for me?
No, that's great. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed learning about both Blackbird and Decompute. And if there was one phrase I could come up with, it's like power to the people. Like, it's bringing the power back to have it, secure on your devices, in your home, in your ecosystem, and not be as dependent on the cloud. So what a phenomenal technology, Hina. And to see you at the forefront of this is amazing, particularly given your stellar background.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So now we're going to go into our rapid fire. So I have 4 questions to ask you, and then we have something that we call from one genius to another. So my last guest has a question for you, so I'm going to ask you that. So first, what's the most overrated tech trend?
I think the most overrated tech trend right now is inference acceleration. I think, how fast do you think it should get? Where would it go, right? Like, why do you need it to be so fast for consumers? For your research work, for trading, for like, predicting any risk in the markets, like those kind of things where like market movement is very volatile and very rapid. Yes, I do understand, like, it's very useful. But after a point of time, like a user has like only a certain, like a definite reading speed, right, where it feels comfortable. So I feel like that has to be kind of like understood from a user's perspective too, right? Like what we're eventually shipping to them. Yeah.
Right. This speed expectation. Okay. What about the most underhyped AI breakthrough?
I think the underhyped AI breakthrough, that would be us at this point, because see, like people know on device is coming, but also like, people are more hyped up about like inference acceleration or like agent creation, but they're not thinking as much about the privacy and security. I think Euro region has done much work in that area than I think us at this point. And I think that's where we need to start thinking as being the leaders in AI, right? Like US has always been leader. So how can we still like, give people right to forget, but at the same time, like, continue building AI together?
Got it. Okay. What about a book folks should read?
So I really like That Will Never Work from Mark Randolph, and I like it because it not only like teaches a very ideal life for a founder, and like, it becomes your like, a companion for your soul as a founder. There are a lot of like, personal life highlights and snippets in that book, and I think like I really really enjoyed reading it, so I would recommend it highly to any founder out there.
All right. Perfect. And then the boldest AI prediction that you have.
The boldest AI prediction is us. Cloud is not the future of AI, it's going to be living on device.
I love that. And then from one genius to another, your question is, if you could write a rule that everyone must follow for one day, what would it be?
So for me, my question would be that, if everybody can be sincere in their journey every day, right? Like, would would we see like and witness a very different world? Because right now I think we have come to a very hustle culture. I'm seeing like people pick up these ideas very quickly, like hustle quickly and then move on. But then, I kind of like don't see people putting sincere efforts in their life every day these days. And I think I kind of miss that part. I think I want to see that passion again in people. And I've seen it in some founders. Don't get me wrong. Like it's not about the general world, but it's about like, it's more about changing the direction, because we have to be the best in AI. And how can we do that? We can only do that if we are sincere and we start thinking of this from more holistic level rather than thinking of this being a money-making vehicle at this point.
I love that. Advice for the soul. So, Hina, thank you so much. I've enjoyed this discussion, and I'm sure our listeners are now just as excited as you are about Blackbird and Decompute and how it can really kind of like change how we think and analyze and use AI in our everyday lives. So, again, thank you so much for being here, and I thoroughly enjoyed the discussion.
Thank you so much, Tamara. You're such a kind person. I was looking at your background, phenomenal background, very inspiring to be here with you. Like such a great moment for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in to Lead with AI. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring the cutting-edge innovations shaping AI across the public and private sectors. Until then, keep leading with AI.